Hello, everyone. This is Mark Jensen. Thank you so much for listening. I had such a pleasure today talking with a really good friend of mine, Dylan Ferguson. Dylan is a master of the tech space. He sits on the opposite side of a huge wall. I feel like his world moves so quickly. We've often discussed the opportunities in the commercial real estate world with merging it with more tech. And it was wonderful to get his thoughts and his perspective. In this episode, you'll hear a lot about what he called the trust revolution, which I think is so on trend and poignant, and is certainly a name that we can associate with all the things that we're feeling and doing right now. As we've activated this work from home workforce. He talked a lot about achieving connection moving forward, this digital transformation that's occurred. Then we get into things like, in my world, the commercial real estate space, how do we improve just the customer experience and the efficiencies of it. He talked about a four-touch process, so much unnecessary work. He asked me questions that really resonated in my mind, like what are where are we spending 80% of our time and how much of that can we automate? Anyway, just a fantastic discussion with a total hitter. Dylan has worked in multiple tech companies and ridden this wave, but certainly provided an immense amount of value to the companies that he works for. He's worked for a wide range of verticals, including high-tech, healthcare, life sciences, telecommunications, oil and gas, retail and consumer goods, and financial services. He's a tech investor, real estate enthusiast, father of 6 beautiful kids, and has a wonderful wife here in Salt Lake City. I look up to him in so many ways, but was grateful for the chance to finally sit down and kind of talk through our two worlds. So take a listen, and I hope you love it. And feel free to reach out to Dylan afterwards. There's no question that this tech meets commercial real estate is going to be a continuing conversation moving forward. It has been, it will continue to be. And the more we can take advantage of that and get involved, the better it's going to be for our industry. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, so Dylan and I were just talking offline. I was joking that I am webinared out over the last 6 weeks, and I've been on self-home quarantine since March 4th. So I'm going on, long time, almost 2 months now. We'll call it 7 weeks. But in that 7-week standpoint, every week has had a different theme. But I am webinared out. And I was just telling Dylan what I'm so excited about today and talking with Dylan is I value perspective right now more than ever. And I've been on so many webinars and conference calls, but it's all real people talking to real estate people. So Dylan, I'm so excited to have you on, to have an outside perspective, your tech background, and some of the things that we've talked about online. I'm just really excited to share those things. So thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And again, I feel the same about you. It's having been neighbors and watched our kids grow up together and kind of getting a chance to see kind of a little bit into your world and you see a little bit into mine. I think it's kind of a unique conversation we're going to have today about how CRE and the high tech consulting space sort of mix together. So I'm excited for both sides of these communities to kind of hear a little bit about how we see the world, and I think we've all come away with a little bit of extra value.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. I feel like, everything in your world seems to move so quickly, and everyone talks about exits and and consolidation and, market caps and market share and ingenuity and innovation, and real estate's just like math and a bunch of boxes. There's definitely some things exciting, but your world seems to move a lot faster than mine.
Well, maybe it looks that way. I think I'll look at the word on the outside. Things always look simpler than potentially they are. But there are some cool things happening in the space, and I think there is a result of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're going to see some truly displacement in terms of the normal, right? We've all heard people talking about the new normal, but I also think that when you look at disruptive moments in time, when you look at the Great Depression, or you look at the 2007, 2008 crash, innovation comes out of difficulty, right? I mean, my family is really important to me, and my family is Scottish, and our Scottish motto is "Dulcis ex asperis," and it means sweetness in difficulty. And so, wow. When I think about these kinds of times, when you look at just what happened in 2000, 2008, we got companies like Uber and Airbnb. And these are companies that have changed the face of how business and high tech think, work, operate from a lead to cash standpoint. Like, how do they actually recognize revenue? What is the business model? How do they think about employees? How do they think about assets? All those things changed as a result of necessity. People didn't have a job and they had to create something. And so when there's friction, you get heat, right? And I think we're lucky enough to have that happen. And I think some of the things that are changing may not necessarily be as business driven. We look back on it, it may be cultural. And if there's one thing I've learned in business is that culture always eats strategy.
Wow. Back up a little bit. And, one of the things I was so excited about, and you heard it, before we started recording, but, we're going to be talking about COVID millionaires, and there are a ton of real estate companies specifically, but there's a ton of companies that started in 9 and 10. You think about, and even earlier than that, 2008, think about Dropbox and Uber, and, certainly on the tech side, there's a lot of that, but I can name half dozen real estate companies that started. So timing can either make you look really good or, possibly really dumb, but holy cow, we're seeing a lot of innovation already. But take a step back. Let us, tell us a little bit more about your background, and then tell us what you're doing at Simplest, and then we can kind of morph into what's next.
Yeah. So from a Simplest standpoint, we were the fastest growing Salesforce partnership. So we do the implementation side. So Salesforce is a global 500 company. They do basically, they're known for CRM. Their stock ticker is CRM. For those who don't know, CRM means customer relationship management. So how do you keep track of your customer? And then they've grown their portfolio. Usually when you have a company that gets that big, they had an answer to a problem nobody else really had an answer to. And Salesforce's answer was, how do you build a platform with a single code line, as opposed to having to do acquisition after acquisition and then reverse engineer those technologies to work with the technologies they already owned. So think about Microsoft, think about Oracle. They bought hundreds of companies, but those companies, they coded their software with a different code language without thinking of any other technology. When they built it, they just built it for their specific purpose. And then so when you acquire it, you want that technology to now work with this technology. So now you have to build a bridge, and that's expensive. All those little connections that you create are expensive. Well, Salesforce, they decided that they were going to build on a native code line, right? So what effect did that have? Well, anyone who's using the Google Marketplace, anyone who's using iTunes or Google's iTunes store and downloading apps on their phone, and those apps show up that fast because it's all on the native code line that came from Salesforce. The idea of an app exchange where you can buy apps for money or for free, that was actually invented by Salesforce. Mark Benioff gave Steve Jobs permission to use that in a business setting or in a consumer setting because they were already doing it in a business setting. So wow. Some of that innovation is what I think is actually going to start translating what I call vertical integration on the CRE side. Because when you think about right now, there's a very hard line between residential real estate and commercial real estate. It's like saying
I was on Dustin Brome's his podcast yesterday. He runs the Massive Agent podcast, which is awesome, but it was 100% about the disconnect. It's two different worlds, right? Like that's another reason why I was excited to get on with you today. You're totally correct.
Yeah. And when you look at things right now as a result of COVID, over half of America's workforce is now working remotely. Half. That includes over 55s, which that's never happened in our world. And so if I'm a home builder right now, I'm immediately thinking about what I call the fourth industrial revolution. And you can read a book by Mark Benioff called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, but it's about the Internet of Things. It's about connected devices. So when you think about the third revolution, that was when we connected the internet, right? Connecting a device to a device on a computer, right? A network. The next one was now we're connecting things to things, right? So you have your app, you can close and open your garage with your phone. You can adjust your lights. You can adjust your temperature. You can turn your oven on. You can turn the temperature in your fridge up and down. So this idea of a connected home is now going to be an idea of how are people going to work from home? How do they separate work from home? within the same building. If you have 300 square feet in Manhattan's financial district, or you have 7,000 square feet in Colorado, what is the different nuances to how you're going to sell to the consumer now? Because they're going to not only be looking for a place to have a family and live, but they're now going to be looking for a place to work. Where are they going to be comfortable working? I don't know if you guys have been on podcasts or Zooms where you've seen someone's bedroom in the background, someone's bed, right?
Oh, I love the poor Jenny. That was like the first week of lockdown, the poor Jenny Zoom video. I need to meet Jenny. She was great. Yeah.
So the idea is, like, if you only have 300 square feet, you don't want to probably project the idea that you have 300 square feet. So is there a possibility to build in a cubicle for work in that scenario? Is there a possibility to build in an integrated workspace with Wi-Fi, cameras, all the essentials, noise canceling rooms, stuff like that? So if I'm an investor in the real estate market, I'm thinking about stuff like that, because one thing that's happening, and I'm seeing, give an example, there's a few companies I'm aware of, even here in Utah, that entry-level workforce, over 1,000 employees. These people were commuters, came in every single day, and all of a sudden they had to work from home. So they had to provision and buy 1,000 laptops for these people, and then teach them how to work in a remote environment, wherever that remote environment is. Now that money's been spent, now that setup's been created, now if I'm that company, I'm looking at my cost expenditures and I'm wondering, why am I paying for 25,000 square feet for people to come on site? And why am I going to require my employees to pay for cars, gas, insurance to commute back and forth for a job that's already entry level? What if I could translate those skills there, and instead of having that high cost, I could not have access to a larger talent pool by not having to hire regionally, but now I can hire, the globe's my now hiring pool. So if I can do things like that, my cost of sale goes down, my cost of service goes down, and I have the unique challenges of how to create a remote culture as opposed to an on-prem culture, right? And so when you're thinking about strategy, I mentioned something earlier. I said, typically culture eats strategy every time. Is a great example of that. Culture now is that people have been able to and allowed to work from home. Are they going to want to come back? I think there are people who are very much looking forward to coming back because of a number of reasons, whether it's, my kids are at home, I can't concentrate, I can't focus, or it's just, I don't want to be in one place 24 hours a day. So there's a number of reasons why people are still going to want to come in. But I think a lot of people are starting to have realizations like you and I have from a perspective standpoint, saying, I don't want the commute to downtown. I like seeing my kids. I'm okay with stepping away from my work and going out into the world for a little bit to kind of separate from my day and then re-enter as kind of dad, right?
Yep.
So I think that's a big part of what we're going to see in the future is what the workforce is going to ask for and require. And when they're going to have company meetings saying, why can't I have more work from home days? What if three days out of the week I work from home, 2 days I come in? I think we're going to see a lot more workforce flexibility that way. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, Chris Kirk, who heads our downtown office division, he's representing a 27,000 square foot tenant right now. And this sort of started pre-COVID, like, hey, our lease is coming up. Here's what's going to happen. They've got a few spaces identified, and then COVID hits and everybody works from home. And this is the first time that I heard that, yes, people are going to like working from home, but the fact that companies have invested in infrastructure means that there's actually kind of an economic, I don't know what to call it, but sort of a carrot, like, hey, we've already invested in the infrastructure. You're liking home, stay home. And so right now that is a real-time deal that's in motion where the decision makers are basically saying, until this is over and we can talk to all of our employees, we don't know if we need 27,000 people. We'll tell you right now, from the feedback that we're getting, we're not going to need that much space. Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting. Who's the shark guy, Mr. Beautiful, who's on Shark Tank? Is that what they call him? Or Mr. Pristine, or dang it. I hope he doesn't listen to this, but he made the comment on MSNBC or CNN a couple of weeks ago that he's like, none of my employees are going back to the office because that's 7 to 10% of my gross revenue. I mean, that's a huge coup to my bottom line. And even if we're less productive, which he doesn't think they are, he said productivity's gone up, but it's a big number, right? It goes, your people are your most expensive line item. Your real estate is your number two, always across the board. You should, most any company that you show me. So there's definitely gonna be some pricing changes. The other thing that I heard on another podcast or webinar a couple of weeks ago that I was listening to, they basically said that the next revolution is your home has to be your office, your gym, in your restaurant. And those three things are where he felt like you were going to see the biggest opportunity and the biggest growth. I mean, you look at Peloton, I mean, they just went public. I mean, look at the timing of that. I mean, I'd say it's almost as good as the LDS church moving to home-centered, church-supported, but that's another topic, another time.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I think you think about what's happened in commercial real estate and what attracted tenants to a specific building, how nice it is. Is it a class A, class B, class C property, right? But also things like, we'll have an in-house chef, we'll cook you lunch, and we have a gym at the building, and we have a rock climbing wall, we have a tennis court, right? All these kinds of things.
That's all your world, man. That was all the tech space. Real estate people, we don't get that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to pivot, I think, because I think you're still going to have the concept of the hub, but think of it more like a hotel. You're going to come into the hub. You're going to use a space. It's not your space. It's a borrowed space. You may host clients there for meet and greets, that kind of stuff, but you're not going to be there full time. And so when you're there, you want to have the amenities that matter that you can't get at home, which is like a large conference room, a kitchen where you can, host your guests. Maybe even like an auditorium for a venue to do like live events, those kinds of things. But the new perk in my mind, and what's going to keep people in the work at home space, I've seen innovative companies already doing things like this. Salesforce is a great example of a company that's consistently on the best companies to work for list from Fortune, Forbes. And they do things like they give you a $100 wellness bonus every single month. You can literally spend it on anything. You could get, a membership to a massage club. You could, use it to pay for a golf membership. You could use it to go golfing. You could use it to get a gym membership. You could use it to get guitar lessons. They don't really care. So there's going to be things like that. I think you're going to see expense accounts come back. Whereas before they've kind of shut down because they're giving you everything at the building. You're going to start seeing where they'll reinstate things like, paying for home and phone internet. They're going to reinstate things like being able to, have a lunch stipend potentially, or those kinds of perks, right? And I also think that you're going to see a lot more remote culture. So I'll give you an example. At Simplest, one of the things that we've been doing that has really been unique is we've been a remote workforce since we started in 2014. We've mostly been remote. Very, very few. We have hubs, but we don't have a lot of people that go into the office every single day. And as a result, we've done things to kind of build culture in a virtual format. So one of the most recent things that I thought was kind of fun is we did a Bob Ross night, where they actually hired a professional painter that came in. We broadcast on Zoom. They were given a bill of materials of what they needed to go buy and have to be able to do the project. This person gave us an online class. We all got to show our works in progress as we were going through it. We've had online cooking classes, same thing, giving a list of ingredients. Everyone's in their kitchens, and we're all cooking away and having a meal. And there's been disasters and there's been good. And so talk about what worked and what didn't. There's been things like, like musics where we're actually sharing music, right? In a Zoom format. So what's interesting though, is people used to have asked me for years, like, what's it like to work from home? Don't you miss being in the office? Do you find it hard? And I said, look, in all honesty, I get more done in 3 hours at home than oftentimes I would in 8 hours at a company setting, because I'm getting interrupted by 6 people I love versus 30 people I associate with. And so just that focus time that you can deliver without all the interruptions that you get constantly, like, hey, you got a minute? You like the head pop, the wave in the glass when you're standing there. So from a productivity standpoint, I think that's an interesting thing you brought up, Mark, about people are being more productive at home because they want to hurry and focus and get the things they need to get done so they can actually spend time on the things that matter most. The reason why we're all working is because we usually have an other, right? For me, it's my 6 children and my wife. I got a big Great Dane. And so I work so that I can provide experiences for them. And I know you're very similar in that regard, Mark. And so I think companies that, when we're looking at what is the fifth industrial revolution, I think it's trust. I think it's going to be a trust revolution. And you think about,
wow, I love that. I love that. You and I have built our lives on integrity and trust. I mean, that to me, that totally just hit me.
yeah, I mean, you think about, look at what's happening on the social networks right now. In the last 18 months, they've taken the biggest PR hit you could take. The way the election went down, the way data is being utilized and properties being dealt with, your own interactions. I've seen companies talking about creating a user's bill of rights, right? So you think about people in the tech world, everything that you do online. What we're doing right now, Mark, is intellectual property. But Zoom has access to this content. How much do they own versus how much do we own? Do we give them permission to listen to the things we're saying right now and create an algorithm based on it, right? So that's that along, and then that parlays into your world as where what is the trust capability in CRE? Like, are workers going to require that companies trust them to work from home? And employers that give that flexibility, what kind of brand loyalty are they creating with their workforce? Because what are the two most valuable assets any company has is, first and foremost, their human capital, and secondly, their data. That's where our two worlds come together. Because the human capital element of that, everyone's competing for the most talented resources. So the people who build the best relationships of trust with their employees are going to have the best outcomes, because they're going to have the best people. And those best people hopefully will create the best cultures, and that's what's going to drive the best strategies.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine that I actually went to University of Colorado in Boulder with, Tad McAnally, and he started in the work from home space like before people even worked from home. But his number one success reason, the reason that his small company got purchased by Teleperformance, is because they focused on creating culture at home. So we need to have a follow-up conversation and talk about that. I have really enjoyed being at home. I wish I wouldn't, but what I was telling my wife was that if I showed up in my quarter zip and maybe I'm in shorts, maybe I'm, in my undies, whatever, and everyone else was at the office, I'd feel guilty. This is the first time in my entire life where it's like, you know what, I'm going to stay home and I don't feel guilty because everybody's in the same boat. That's where I think everyone's allowed to, without pressure or concern, really decide, like, what do I like and what do I want? And I think people are going to come out of this realizing a number of things. One, you don't need as much as you thought you needed. Two, you don't need all these crazy vacations. That driving to the salt flats like we did the other night, because of you, by the way, I had never been out there, but I know that you guys did that. I had the best time ever. I've been camping out at home with my daughters. They come in and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? I loved how you put it. I'm getting interrupted by people I love versus people I associate with. I will say this, as a producer, one of the reasons I met the firm I'm at is because they put me in a private office in a 15,000 square foot floor plate that only has like 18 people in it. I've been at other firms that were more hotelish style, and I would get interrupted every 5 minutes because I would have the answer. I would know somebody, and that's amazing, right? I love to give back, but the mental capacity and the time that it takes, and then all of a sudden the 20 seconds it takes me to be like, well, what was I working on before? I mean, that is taxing, and it doesn't move my life or my business forward or benefit my family. And from home, I've been able to shut the door. They know when I'm at work, and just my effective time. I don't even know if there's like a right way to say it, but my ability to just focus and do the work has been epic. So I think you will see some productivity for the people that can be trusted with that productivity. What have you liked? What have you learned? But you've always sort of worked from home, right?
Yeah. A couple of things. Number one is that I don't think of work as a timeline anymore. I don't think of it as, oh, it's 9 o'clock, I've got to be at work, or at 6:30 in the morning, I've got to be at work. I kind of think of work as there's necessary times when I need to be doing something, and there's other times when I can be doing other things. So I'm integrating my life the way you would integrate technology, the way you would integrate, code.
Wow.
You know, this 45 minutes was dedicated to this conference call with this client. This 10 minutes was dedicated to teaching my kids about the global marketplace, right? I've had conversations with my kids. It's been such an awesome time to show your kids what the stock market is. You know, how does it work? And it's doing stuff. So it's not quite as boring as it would ordinarily be. And so I've got my kids thinking about, you know, how to, and they're teaching other people. Like my 11-year-old daughter was teaching my 5-year-old son how the market works using Legos. She said the Millennium Falcon has 5,000 pieces. Buying into the stock market is like buying one Lego. You own that one Lego that goes into that Millennium Falcon, and the more Legos you buy, the more you own, the more is yours, right? And so she was like, she's teaching like buying a stock like having a Lego in a Millennium Falcon. I thought that was just brilliant. So just those kind of things are great.
That is genius. And you're right. I laugh because my
mother.
I laugh because my kids, they think I sell crappy buildings. Like when we drive by an ugly building, they're like, "Why can't you sell pretty buildings?" It's like, ugh. But now they've gotten a chance to hear me and negotiate and communicate and provide advice and produce strategy. Like I think they had a chance not just to learn about some things that we've talked about offline, but they've actually had a chance to see what I do for a living. And I think I don't know, it's just been fun. Like, but I loved your comments about, you know, those 10 minutes you have to explain something. Otherwise they're at school. It's actually a chance that we get to craft them and to spend more intentional time with them. And the one thing that has absolutely resonated. So very early on, I knew that, I mean, I told my girls in January, hey, if COVID-19 gets here, I'm pulling you out of school. So the day before their school gets canceled, I pull them out because we had a jazz player that got infected, right? And then we go to school with kids that hang out with his kids. And so they ended up canceling our school. Long story, but the first thing I did is I said, we're each going to set a goal and we're each going to figure out how to learn something new during this time frame. So all of my girls have goals in what we're trying to produce. We don't need to go into that, but I knew that this was going to be a unique time. The only thing I wish I was further ahead in life, because I think if I could pull the plug right now, go rent a beach house for a year and just put my family on pause, I probably would do it. But that's just because I've enjoyed the family time that I haven't necessarily had before. So I have definitely loved it.
Mark, I agree with you. I think the American dream for me has changed. It used to be, you know, that, you know, you have things and you could do things, right? For me, the American dream is less. I honestly wish I would spend less time chasing the kind of things we chase every day and more time like teaching my daughter to surf, or, you know, teaching my son how to hoist a mast and tie a knot, and, you know, how to start a campfire responsibly, and, you know, how to go clean up after, you know, our human footprints in the wilderness. Because I don't know if you've gotten out in the woods and you see there's evidence of us everywhere out there. There's the wrong kinds of footprints. And this has been such a unique opportunity. I mean, the air's never been cleaner in Utah. People are driving less. I've gone for so many walks in the neighborhood, and people are outside again. I mean, when you and I were kids, kids played in the street. It's happening again. Like even though people could be playing video games, they're not. And that's what's been so great. Something else that you asked me earlier, and it kind of ties in with my conversation about trust, is that having meetings like this, where you're getting to see an intimate portrait of the people you work with. You see the rooms that they live in. You see their dogs, their kids come in. And there's the few people that still feel like they have to be embarrassed about it. And then there's the people like you and I who are giving them permission to be people. Like, of course your kid's going to come in. Of course your dog or your cat's going to walk across your keyboard. And when you can give people permission and trust that they can be a person, that they can be a real person that has interruptions, that has children, you can take 5 minutes to say hello to their kid. And like Minnie came in, my 5-year-old daughter, and it was her birthday. And I was on a call with a pretty big company, and I just owned it. I asked her to come in. I sat her on my lap, introduced her to the conference call, and I said, "It's Minnie's birthday," and they actually sang her happy birthday. And I walked away from that experience with those people with more of an intimate relationship than if I'd have gotten on a plane and flown to Seattle to talk to them for 2 days. Like they know. I was able to say, "Guys, that's my why. That's why I do what I'm doing. Why am I going to ensure your project is successful? Because I got to take care of her. And that doesn't happen unless you guys fuel that dream, right? And so there's real interactions, even though they're virtual, that are happening, that are giving people permission to put aside this term we've called professionalism and actually embrace our humanity.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
think there's,
that
yeah.
permission, that trust, give to someone is really going to be fundamentally a different way forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's added a lot of depth. You know, what you just said really resonated. So we have about, I think there's 20 professionals of us in downtown Salt Lake City in our office. And when I go to my office, I tell people all the time, I go to work. So I don't like being interrupted. And I used to fake it like it's okay. And then, you know, last couple of years, it's like, you don't want to interrupt Mark Jensen. When I go downtown, I go to work. But listen to this. What's today? Wednesday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3:30. So I'm missing it today. But we've been hosting. I don't know what they call it. If it's not open mic, but it's just like a jam session, and it's so convenient to be able to get on and get off. You're not in a room. There's no posturing. It's just we're just talking about real life things that are happening to everybody in business. And those have probably been the most fun conversations I've had in the 17 years I've been in the real estate business, because there's no agenda and everyone's just at home hanging out. And so I don't know. I totally agree. I think it's created a new wave, a new opportunity. I feel like it's almost like, so, you know, Instagram is your best life. Like I feel like being on Zoom, it's just, you're being real. I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. My daughter starts her, you know, Spanish Zoom class in 8 minutes. I mean, I've heard that a lot. So I think it brings a huge human element to it. There will be changes that hold from this event, right? Like your comment about the American dream is adjusted. Mine totally has. Dude, I have like 19 suits in my closet that I haven't worn since March 4th. Am I excited to put a suit back on? I don't know. I may have changed that much, you know, like, and that's what I'm known for. But is that a front? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I'm excited for, you know,
Well,
what
there's learned and
comes.
unlearned behaviors, right, Mark? I mean, we've learned these behaviors. We were taught on television as kids. You watch Mad Men, like you dress up for the meeting, right? But what I'm learning more and more in my career is that I care a lot less what people are wearing, and I care a lot more what they're saying or not saying, right? And the more you can focus on what they're actually bringing that's real value, like a suit gives me zero value, whether I'm the CEO or I'm the entry level employee. It can create barriers for sure, and one for positives and negatives, right? Some people will love it, some people won't. So you know, you're always making, so a sea of choices that we're making in our lives, and we're having to live with those things. I had an interaction with my child the other day, and I said, you know, half of life is making choices. And very, very thoughtfully, it's just something I said off the top of my head. She looked at me and she says, "What's the other half, Dad?" And I said, "Wait a minute." And I said, "Living with them."
Yeah.
And I think that plays into what's happening right now is I'm seeing families connect in a way they haven't been able to connect in years, or maybe even ever. And when you think about the future of our world, and you think about, you know, our political climate, you think about our business climate, you think about our financial climate, I think that people being able to be home and present and with kids, parents having to struggle to be more engaged to actually help educate their children and not leaving it to some person they've met once or twice a year, is creating this connection that has been missing. You know, the children, I don't think, are going to remember how hard school was, but they're going to remember mom teaching them to read. They're going to remember them Googling how to fix a math problem and not arriving at the answer. Mom and dad can't answer my math problem. And realizing that it's okay to not know. My dad's still successful, but he can't answer my 5th grade math problem. We had to Google it, and we hope we found the right answer. It's creating those moments of connection, those moments of feeling like you belong to something, and not feeling like you're constantly on an island moving around and you're never in one spot. Like home is home now. And I think the ramifications of that, if we can perpetuate and maintain that and give parents the opportunity to be more in the home, our children are going to feel more accountable. They're going to feel more encouraged. I think they're going to feel more empowered in their future state. A lot of people in this marketplace right now, they feel like they have to know what the strategy is before they can start working. A lot of people feel like they have to have the instructions. Like, you can't just pour a bunch of Legos on the ground and build something and call it something. They have to have a booklet that they follow so it looks like the thing in the picture to feel like they've accomplished something, that they've been successful. And by removing some of those requirements and giving people the opportunity to think abstractly, we're going to create a much better future that hopefully is more integrated around humanity and less integrated around things.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, the trust revolution, the connection, what people are learning, like, I think a lot of people's guards, have come down. I'm grateful for the opportunity. The other thing I was thinking too, as you were saying some of that, is I've done these things individually, and I've seen friends do them individually. Like, I'm going to take a couple of days because I need it, but it's all disaligned, and it's just kind of this personal journey. But now the world has been shocked, and everybody's going through this together, and we have an opportunity to change as a culture and as a society and as a globe. That's where I think it's going to get really interesting. So let's go on to getting back to kind of business, what you guys are seeing, what your expectations are, what you're excited about. And then I want your outside perspective of the commercial real estate space, because I know that it's perceived as old, non-technologically advanced, and slow. And I want to start thinking about and throwing out there to the universe, how do we combine our two worlds to see some success. And that was like the world's longest. You can tell I don't podcast for a living. Whatever you took out of that, go, Dylan.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll start with like my world, where the focus is, has been, and will continue to be, is around this term called digital transformation. COVID's accelerated a lot of that. When we think digital transformation, we're think of, it used to be when you wanted to buy, when you wanted to purchase something, you had to get in your car, drive to a brick and mortar, wait in line to get the thing you wanted. Now, those companies have to get in line to wait for you in a digital format. So Amazon and Google and Adidas, they're all trying to come to your doorstep and saying, buy from me. But the companies who know their client and have a record of them and have a profile that follows them all the way across their organization, those are the companies that are excelling right now. The ones who are disconnected, disjointed, don't have a end-to-end perspective of their client, they're the ones that are struggling. They're the ones that are getting written up for being horrible on the customer service side. And so you have to have what the overused term is 360-degree view of the customer. And what does that really mean? It means that they know what you're interested in, what you might be interested in the future, and that they can provide and serve that up to you in a no-think process. Mark, have you ever bought anything from Facebook?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, so you've never seen an ad for something in Facebook, clicked the image, and bought the thing right there.
I have not. I'll tell you what has happened is I've searched on rei.com, and then for 17 years, that same gray vest shows up in my Facebook feed. But anyway, proceed.
Okay. Hey, now you're onto something. So
yeah.
Where do you buy? If you're going to buy something, where do you go?
Typically, I'm an Amazon whore, so I see it and I look for it on Amazon.
Okay, now you just answered the number one reason why Amazon is the leading trillion-dollar company in the world is because they've created a no-think process. They've been able to find and serve up to you not only what you wanted in the moment, but also what you might want next. And so they understand you individually. And because they understand you and they make it easy for you, you keep coming back. So that's when people talk about digital transformation, sometimes they're thinking about it in terms of a technology format. But really what they're actually talking about is keeping brand loyalty and customer loyalty by making things valuable for people, right? I hear you talk about value all the time. We talk about value so much that we might actually lose track of what that actually means. And it's simplifying life by getting us where we want to go in the path of least resistance with the best possible outcome. Was the thing you bought good?
I love
Was
that.
the a quality item? Did you have any problems with it? Did you buy it, use it, and forget that you even got it from Amazon? That's the best possible situation because you're so ingrained that you're just going to go back there. You're not even wondering whether your experience is worth repeating, right? So clients are trying to figure out how to do that, and not just on the enterprise space, but also within government. Most governments right now, they have, like Utah has 36 state agencies. All 36 state agencies have their own technology stacks. Each technology stack creates a quote unquote profile of their constituent. They may have 90 different profiles for one individual constituent because they're spread across 90 different systems. So the idea is what if we could create a single profile to rule them all? Where, if you went to Health and Human Services and they couldn't solve your problem, they could route you over to the governor's office and it's the same profile that follows you. And everyone knows, oh, you've already been routed over here. We can see that. The governor's office gets you and says, I'm sorry, we're not the right person, but the right person for you to speak to is actually over in the auditor's department. Let me transfer you over there. And you're being transferred virtually. And that whole experience is transferred. And now they're learning from it. They're realizing that it took 3 transfers to get this person where they wanted to go. Is there a way for us to automate? What questions could we be asking in a virtual self-service format to allow this person to get to where they want to go faster and more efficiently? That's where we're looking at how many clicks to success, right? How much information can we gather and maintain so that the next time this person interacts, they don't have the rigmarole that they're used to. They're not looking at government red tape, that their government's actually finding some efficiency for them. Or that Amazon or Dish Network or CenturyLink or T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, they are creating these no-think processes where they know you. Have you ever gotten an email that says, dear valued customer?
Yeah, delete.
Yeah, how valued are you if they don't know that your name is Mark Jensen? I mean, it's a simple technology buy and a data load. It's very simple. And so I've gotten emails like that, and I've sent them to a note and saying, how do you not know me? I've been a member with you for 15 years and you still don't know me when you're trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
And so that's when in our space, that's what we consult with some of, these kind of companies is help them think through efficiency. Like you said, you don't need as many things as you have, right? And the companies are the same way. They have 200 applications to manage their clients, but they really only need 3. They just don't know how to consolidate it down. They don't know how to build the automation. They don't know how to create the artificial intelligence to help drive the right interactions behind the scenes. It can be translated in milliseconds instead of being handled by someone who has to get the whole story and then transfer you, and then you have to give the whole story again, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of where Simplus is focused, is to help companies drive those kinds of efficiencies. And I think your question is, what is my thoughts on real estate?
Well, let me just jump in and say like everything you just said, like I'm like taking notes because it's totally real estate. I mean, the reason that residential real estate, everyone's so focused on that is there's so much friction cost. That's where blockchain and tokenization and all this stuff has just been, I mean, honestly, amazing to me, and it will happen. You will get rid of me if you can, and you will get rid of residential agents if you can. In a lot of ways, maybe we should, because there's so much friction. There's so many hands in that pot. It's just insane. So the inefficiencies in real estate are there. People are trying to solve it. But yes, continue.
Yeah. So, you said something interesting to me, like my business mind started to work. You said, real estate's, math, right? And math. A lot of things are, right? A lot of things are. It's math and it's people, right? And so how do you create a personalized experience that is also efficient and effective, right? I mean, so Mark, you take what you do every day. Let's say you do 20 deals a year now. What if, because you build automation into your process, and because of that automation that you invested in, you could cover 5x the ground, but provide more efficient process, where instead of taking, let's say your average close time right now is what, a month, 6 weeks? How long does it take you? What's your average close time right now?
From listing to close, I'm 91 days.
91 days. What if you could consolidate that down by a third? What would that do to your
Yes, please. But let me also go back to
Right.
something that you said earlier
So
that it really
we're
that
doing
really
that
hit
right
me.
now. We call it lead to cash.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying, let me go back to what you said. You said, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, but I'm going to go back and listen to this because you said basically that success is, or what you're solving for is getting people from where they are now to where they want to go quickly and efficiently. I totally just butchered it, but I mean, there is so much opportunity for me to do that in a better fashion in commercial real estate and provide that experience to somebody. I mean, if I know that you want to get rich and that's you're using real estate as your vehicle, if I could get you richer faster, like everybody wins, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so the idea is it's time and math, right? So as much as we like to think as salespeople that like the charm that we bring to the meeting and the donuts and the jokes and the personality that we drive, sure, that's nice and that's fun, but that's not really why people are buying from us. They're buying because we got them an asset that they valued in one way or another, and they like that experience enough that they wanted to do something with us again later if we were lucky, right? Repeat business is the
yeah,
best compliment. So there's a way of saying, look, what if you could go proactively to the people you've already done business with and said, hey, we learned a lot about you in our last interaction, so much so that here are 3 different things that fall into what you care about that are automatically being served up to them. Mark didn't have to go do 2 hours of research to send 1 property over, but you just sent 3 over because you captured enough information about their process, their likes, their money, their segment, that your math and your automation process is now serving that up to your clients without Mark having to do it. And now Mark's covering, those 5,000 interactions that you have. You're covering them a lot faster with a lot more valuable information. They're going to reach out to you and say, Mark, I'm interested in this one. And if now you've cut down your selling cycle by 2/3, you're going to get them from point A to point Z faster by 2/3 than you did the last time. That's going to create another repeat buy where they don't have to have 900 phone calls and 900 emails to accomplish the same task. Maybe that was a 4-touch process that that's when I think of value, that's the kind of value I'm looking for. Because as much as I like working with the people I do business with, I'd much rather be spending that time with my kids at that beach house you're talking about. So what if you could do more in less time, but drive a better process, better buying experience, and a better outcome? Because it took less time to deliver, which meant they had spent more time with the asset than they would have if it took them 3 months instead of 1 month. Those 2 months of revenue matter, right, in the long run. So that's kind of how, I think about my world and how it might translate into your world. Now, again, there's a limited volume of assets, right? Where there's demand and then there's what's available. So how do you make sure that you're getting that demand to the right buyer faster than the other real estate agent that's out there? Well,
yeah,
that's the biggest problem that I see most companies making right now. Some people have no choice. They have to cut their capital expenditures. They can't invest. They're just stuck. And that's just because they didn't prepare to begin with. But just in the way you're saying, if you're not selling, you should be learning. If you're not selling, you should be figuring out how to sell better, right? So you create automation now. And like there's tools like, have you ever heard of a chat bot before, Mark?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've used them to not get what I needed with Comcast.
Right. So a chatbot is artificial intelligence that already knows the most frequently asked questions, that triage what your need is, and potentially serve up to you the answer without you having to directly go to a person because people are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So that principle applies to business is, what can we do to get rid of 80% of, people said, you already know the answer, right? I call it the hey, hey, hey principle. I'm going to write a book on this one day. We call it scope creep in our world, but it's like, hey, 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 can it do this? And hey, 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 can it do that? And the answer is yeah, right? And so I spend half my life trying to avoid the hey, hey, hey principle. And so you can avoid hey, hey by saying, hey, 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 I already know 90% of the answers to 90% of your questions. Go ask your question. We'll answer your question in an automated format, which means your cost of sale goes down, your cost of service goes down, which means your revenues increase, your margins increase. Everyone's happy. Your clients got served faster and efficiently. you didn't spend as much money to get them there, and you made more money and more margin on the deal. So
Yeah.
if companies right now that aren't investing in automation, and they aren't, because again, they got rid of all their non-essential workforce, a lot of them already have, which means they're going to have to come back and do more with less. And if they haven't built operational efficiencies, technology integration that's going to solve a lot of those things for them, they're going to put this huge heavy burden on people that they rely on to ask them to do 3 people's job. And those people will get so burnt out, they're going to leave. So their best people will leave inside of 6 months to a year. And now the company that was promoting their talent, promoting their culture, now is dealing with C players who are working there because they have to, not because they want to. And their whole dynamic, their whole culture, their whole offering has just changed dramatically because of an 18-month cycle.
Wow.
Companies that invest and get better now will be able to go to market more efficiently. They'll outcompete their competitors, and they'll win business faster and better with better margins than their competitors. And they're going to put their competitors out of business. And that's, I think, the real thing I'm trying to help as a consultant people get their head wrapped around is like, don't cancel that project that makes you more efficient. You've got IT people sitting around right now. Instead of putting them on furlough, put them to work on minimizing the amount of unnecessary work that's happening in your business. Create that automation. And then allow people to go to market with better tools, even though they have less employees. And you're going to drive a better cost of sale and a better cost of service.
I mean, yeah, just, wow. I mean, just, so here's something that's interesting. You and I just talking is representative of this, but I haven't had time to do the things that I feel like really matter to me because I've been so reactionary. And I've told people for this for years. Everyone's like, well, how come you don't go do this? Or how come you don't do that? It's like, because I've been in business for 16 going on 17 years. And a lot of what I do is reactionary because I've never had time to step back and work on my business because I'm always in the business. And what you just said is like, this is that time where everybody can work on the business so that when we come out of this, you're going to be a powerhouse, baby. And our team is doing it. But to me, that's incredibly solid advice that every company and every individual should take and every family should take is where are inefficiencies? How do we improve? And the automation piece, I think, is could take some serious thinking and talking through. And that's where, you come in as a consultant.
And that's where this idea of platform becomes really important. Go to most marketing departments and you'll find out they're using 15 tools to really market to their business. And what that creates is, Mark, imagine if you had to use 15 tools to win a client.
Yeah.
And then try to report on those 15 tools, right? So if you could find a way to create a platform that incorporates your marketing motion, your selling motion, your service motion, and your data motion, how the data is moving and operating behind the scenes. If you could do that all in one place with one technology that's native so that you can report across all of those scenarios, everyone's seeing the same information, the same data. These meetings that you go into where you spend 90% of your time presenting data, and then because of that data, what's the first thing that happens as soon as you present anybody with data? Do they go, oh yeah, that makes sense? No, they ask a question. And the question usually requires you to go get more data. So that's a great question. We'll have to get back to you on that. Whereas when I use the Salesforce platform that does that exact thing, it covers the entire front office. I can say, well, hold on, let's look. Because data breeds questions. So you want to go 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 layers deep, you can. You can do it right there in real time with the client or the business partner in the room and show them up and down the chain, the layering. Where did it come from? Well, it looks like last month we sold 33 deals. Okay, well, where did those deals come from? Well, one second. Let's look at the report. Let's drill down. What was the lead source? Well, the lead source was referral. Okay, we had 80% referral, 20% organic marketing. Okay, well, from the organic marketing side, did they come from Google AdWords? Where did that come from? You can dig in, you can actually really parse your data and really understand how you're doing business and say, is this how we want to do business? I think the most invaluable thing that any person, individually or any company, can do is ask themselves, where are we spending 80% of our time every single day? And ask yourself, do we need to spend our time here? Or are there things we can do that can eliminate that time spent? Even if it doesn't necessarily get replaced with productive activity, but we're just eliminating the 80% of time on something that could be automated, because now of that automation, we're now able to report on that data and better understand what the outcomes are. I call that outcome-based selling. And that's where you're understanding what is the success criteria to achieve the outcomes our customers are looking for. And then how do we adjust the way we're spending marketing dollars, the way we're spending sales dollars, the way we're spending servicing dollars to better fit what our clients are already telling us. We just don't have the ears to hear.
Wow. Yeah.
So most large enterprises are consolidating, like doing what called app rationalization, where they're taking these 200 apps they're using and they're trying to consolidate it down to 2 or 3 platforms. So they've got like a supply chain platform they're using. They've probably got a back office GL, like a financial system that they're using, like an ERP. If you're in healthcare, they're using an EMR. And in the tech space, they're also looking at their front office tool. So Salesforce is, who they are because they built a platform that spans the entire front office. Workday is one of the fastest growing ERP systems in the world because they figured out how to create a back office system for healthcare or for human resources and financial, and being able to put those two things together. So what Salesforce is to the front office, Workday's become to the back office in the cloud computing space. And then you've got like your Blue Yonders, formerly JDA Software, which are like the Salesforce of supply chain. They're competing with the Oracles and the SAPs of the world. SAP's kind of, in my mind, more of an older model that's tried to convert from being an on-prem technology to a cloud-based service, whereas other companies started as cloud first, and so they've kind of got a head start, a little more nimble. So that consolidation is what you're seeing from that digital transformation, is relying on 2 or 3 platforms as opposed to 200 applications.
Yeah, I mean so the first thing I'm going to say is I feel bad for anyone in real estate that listens to this because we right now, like my team, and we're one of the most advanced teams in the market, but we subscribe to 15 different websites and information aggregators. Internally, we use Asana, we use Slack, we use Outlook, we use Skype for Business, we use Zoom, we use Evernote, it's so crazily inefficient, it's unbelievable. And we have to shepherd everything. When people ask me what I do, if you have an hour, I'll tell you, because I do everything from biz dev all the way through, post-marketing. How are you and the kids now that you own this, property type thing? So, there's so many inefficiencies to be applied to real estate. This could be, you and I could start a company today that's going to take us a couple of years to work through, but it can provide a tremendous amount of value to the agents, because anybody listening to this, they're on my side of the table are going to be going through this thinking, holy crap, we do 80% of stuff that really doesn't matter. Here's something I told to my team weeks ago. This period of time has made me recognize that I do so many things that don't matter. Hey, Mark, this is so-and-so. I got your name from somebody, or I saw you on LinkedIn. We're really interested in Salt Lake City. Tell us about Salt Lake City. I have that conversation 22 times a week. And what should I do? I should record a podcast about why Utah is amazing, why we're number 1 in the market, number 1 in population growth, top 5 in job growth, how we're one of the most diversified economies, how every metric we're going to beat out everybody else coming out of COVID-19, including the fact that last month we were the highest in the nation for rent collections. People here pay rent, so we're a lower risk profile. But that being said, I could just record that and be like, hey, thank you so much. I'm going to send you a link to my automation and in my FAQs. Like, you've just blown my mind in like one sector of 452 sectors I need to explore. But that is what this time is about. So let's sort of button this thing up, because I think we've been talking for a while, and I know that people are going to have follow-up questions, but what are you most excited for moving forward? And what is one area where you think you and I should follow up and try to connect on commercial real estate meets your tech world?
So I'll answer that question first. There's a concept right now called the system of agreement. Some people call it contract lifecycle management, but it's automating that very, very manual process for most companies. How do you contract? How do you redline? How do you keep track of legal clauses that you're on the hook for that are unique to the deal? There's an automated way to do that now. It makes it so nice. Like what I've seen companies that takes a month to get a contract completed and out the door, they're doing it in an hour now. Like, these are complex contracts, 90 pages long, 10-year, 15-year agreements, right? that are getting done in an hour as opposed to getting done in 90 days. So we should probably talk about contract lifecycle management, the system of agreement, because real estate is rife. I mean, I've bought a number of houses, and just the amount of, and it's more than just the DocuSign process, right? Here's an electronic signature. It's taking electronic signature and then actually thinking through the entire contract lifecycle process and automating that in a way that is reportable, that is expandable, and it is efficient. Your client should never have to come into your office and sit down and sign 70 pages with little tabs that you've had to pre-set up and say, sign here, and then all the explanations as to what it is they're signing. Disclosures can be automated. The what does this mean is a hover tab. It's much simpler. And then how do you work and get efficient legal components? If you have to redline the agreement, go back and forth, how do you keep track of versioning? That's something I'm really excited about, because everyone has this problem in the marketplace. I think it's the number one problem being solved in business right now. And I happen to be partnered with two of the best companies in the world that deliver the solution. Conga and DocuSign are the two biggest answers to that question. Either one would solve your need, depending on what your specific need is. We can make recommendations of which company is the best one to work with. But I'd say that's probably the number one problem I'm solving for people right now. It's just taking that very, very manual, awful process. It's awful for the customer. It's awful for the salespeople. It's awful for finance. It's awful for sales operation. It's awful for legal. And how do you zip it up and make it quick? And COVID has been a great catalyst for that, because companies that depended on wet signatures can't get them right now. So they've had to move to e-signature capabilities. They've had to figure out how to transact virtually. And that's something we'll probably do in a whole other hour talking about.
Yep. Okay. So
how about you, Mark?
So what am I most excited about? I think I'm most excited that everybody has been shocked by the same thing, and everybody is taking a chance to learn something new right now. I mean, I was thinking the other day, like, I've learned how to edit video. I've learned how to Zoom. I've learned how to, overlay audio into a still picture. Like, anyway, it's just funny. I've just learned stuff. My daughter has learned how to edit video. My wife is learning how to edit photos and to do design online and, through a couple of different programs. Like, I feel like everybody is going to come out of this a better person, even if they didn't want to, like, even if you were sitting on the couch, you're going to learn something. No one has been idle. I think that humans on Earth have recognized that we like motion and we like to do things, and we're pissed, and we're all pissed at the same thing, right? The one thing I have loved, and this is what I'm hoping we can all learn something from, is if we did in real estate what the medical community has done and what the scientific community has done to band together to go after a single evil enemy, I mean, that is like the most incredible, like, I'm getting goosebumps, dude. I mean, the scientific community immediately started sharing everything that they knew about the bad guy, right? I mean, it was unbelievable. And I hope that a lot of industries work with consultants like you to figure out how to share that information and data. Even if it's the reason we listen to podcasts is we're looking for information that makes us think, or we're looking for a success thing that we can replicate. And I think that there is so much good that will come out of this. We'll all be in our pajamas, but it's going to be amazing. But I think those are some of the things that I'm most excited about. So
yeah, I agree with that. It's gonna be fun to see what the ripple effect of this is. But I think there's gonna be a lot of good that's gonna come from it.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that I hope carries through as well, and I'll leave it at that, is that everybody has had everybody's had this energy and this truth to them that we're all in this together. There's been very little, it's happening to you, not us. I mean, it's like we're all kind of, doing this together. And I've learned a lot about what's important to me, who's important to me, who I'm important to. And I think that those relationships that strengthen are going to be unbelievable. And I think the relationships with people that, you weren't important to them or they weren't important to you, I think coming out of this, people are going to get a lot more intentional, a lot more efficient. And that ties into your world and mine. And I think that's where a lot of the opportunity lies. So
Yeah, it's also bringing up a lot of questions that really need thought and study and approach and time. I mean, we hear we're all in this together, but some people are in this more than others. Think about who we idolize and who we think of as heroes in our world has changed in the last 2 months. You think about, the workers that we depend on every single day, the grocery store people, the folks at the gas station, the folks that are changing your tire and changing your engine oil. I mean, these are the people that are still working every single day. And also people that have just recently lost their job. And there's this idea of essential and non-essential. I really don't like those terms because I think we're all essential. I think that we're all here because we all bring something unique and special and valuable to the world. And so I'm hoping that the average population person is recognizing value in people. That, again, I'm going to go back to that humanity question, that we care a lot less about labels. We care a lot less about companies and governments, and we start focusing a lot more on our humanity. And that's what makes us all in this together, is the humanity component. Is if we can look at it from a human point of view and saying, there are people that are struggling, there are people that have had losses, there are businesses that are going under. There is, it's like a virtual wildfire. It's really happening right now. And so are we all, based on whatever's position we're in, are we helpers? Are we taking the best of our humanity and reflecting that into the world? And I think that is one of the things that I'm really hoping is going to be a big takeaway for everybody, is that we care a lot less about things that don't matter and a lot more about the people.
I agree. I hope that's true. Watch for the helpers. I read one really good quote that said, I hope you like yourself looking back on who you were during this time. And I was like, man, that's pretty powerful. I think we're all learning about who we are and who we want to be, and we're definitely seeing some greatness too. But you're right, the front line shifted to our heroes. And yeah, it's my hope and prayer that we do learn a lot from this and carry that forward. So very well said. So anyway, with that, any parting words to this random population that doesn't exist yet as I find my tribe?
No, I think it's great. I think every journey starts with a step, Mark. And if all that happens is you and I had a great conversation today, that's all. It was really important to me. But it's great to connect with you, and I always admire the kind of dad that you are. And I think that we're successful in business because we care about our kids, we care about our wives, and we want to give them the best possible life and experience. And that's what makes us successful at work, out of necessity for those things. And so, I admire that your heart's always there. As much as we care about our jobs, you're a Class A dad. I look at your Instagram to learn about how to be a dad, not to learn about CRE. I happen to get both, and that's the bonus. So appreciate what you do.
Mad respect for you, man. And you know how much I look up to you. So I appreciate your time on this, and look forward to future interactions as we work to continue to combine worlds to create success for many.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.